there, I'm Pete Hammond for today's half hour with, and today we're going to spend a half hour with a film that isn't a half hour. It's actually about 18 minutes or so, and it is nominated for the Academy Award for Best Live Action Short. It is called The Singers, and it's quite a remarkable movie with a remarkable story. And it has been brought to us by its director and producer, Sam Davis, who is a two-time Oscar nominee himself. He's got a foundation in cinematography, having shot many different films as a cinematographer in his career, and including an Academy Award-winning short called The Period End of Sentence, which he produced, shot, and edited. He knows his way around all of this, went to USC, and we're going to find out how he landed on The Singers, which is a unique project to say the least. Welcome to Half Hour with Sam. How are you?
So nice to be here, Pete. I'm
Yeah.
good. I'm good. Thank you.
How excited are you that this landed at the Academy Awards, taking you back?
Yeah, I'm still processing. I think I'm like you alluded to, this project was such an unlikely, sort of path from concept to screen, just getting the movie done. I'm still pinching myself that the film exists outside of my own head, let alone that it's Oscar nominated. And so I'm just really overwhelmed and grateful and just happy to be here.
Yeah, it's going to be on Netflix, and it's going to be part of what Roadside Attractions will be releasing in theaters. All the shorts and everything will go out as well.
Yep.
Many opportunities to see this on small screen, large screen, and tell us though, it's based on a 19th century story that you came upon. How did this happen? Tell us what it is.
Sure. About 3 years ago, I read George Saunders' storytelling masterclass, A Swim in a Pond in the Rain. And in that book, he breaks down seven classic Russian short stories. So essentially, it's structured as short story analysis, so on and so forth. And one of those stories happened to be The Singers, which was written in 1850 by a Russian writer named Ivan Turgenev. And yeah, when I first read the story, I found it to be really dense and quite slow. And I'll admit that I read it late at night and I nodded off a couple times on my first read. But something really interesting happened by the time that I finished, which was that I think the writer had sort of played a trick on me, where he lulled me to sleep in this in the humdrum of this kind of sad, lowly pub in 1800s Russia, and then snuck up on me and surprised me with this really unexpected testament to the power of connection through, in this case, song, but you could extend that to art or just vulnerability in general. And that really sparked with me and kind of kept me awake that night, stirring. And from there was so the second piece of it was the next time I looked at my phone after I read the short story, there was a viral video of a subway busker in New York City named Mike Young. That was at the top of my feed. It was sort of a kismet connection between these two things, and I just immediately flashed on a modern adaptation of this short story, but starring all of these sort of hidden gem, unsung talents from around the world, buskers and people who maybe had a moment on America's Got Talent at one point. And what if we filled up a bar with people like that and kind of let them slowly emerge and reveal their gifts?
So it's a real adaptation. Well, let's take a look first off before we talk about this some more. Here is The Singers.
Yep, another night at the bar.
How you doing, man? Good, thanks.
Come for the people watching, if nothing else. Let's see now. There's this guy and this feller in the corner. Young man with the tattoos, guy with the tubes, this fish, father, and the bartender, of course. Well, contrary to how it might look tonight, there's more here than meets the eye. We got a story brewing. A short story. So pull up a chair, turn up the volume, and stay till last call.
Amazing grace, how sweet the
Wow, that was fantastic.
Wow. I love that setting. I love the setting of the bar here, the atmospheric nature of this, of these guys,
Mm.
these disparate men there, and each one sort of set up with their own unique personality, which is no easy trick in an 18-minute movie. You're trying to establish a whole world that also turns into a musical of sorts, too. All of these elements could not have been easy to tackle as a filmmaker here. So what was your key approach in making this all contained world cinematic?
Mm. That's a great question. Well, my background is mostly in documentary, and I wanted to find ways to inject a lot of the skills that I've developed over the years in documentary into a work of fiction. So the approach really was to pretend as little as possible. So work with these real people, ask them to come and play themselves. We always talked about curating chaos. I thought of the bar as sort of a vessel, like a bowl of soup. And each of these personalities we were finding all over the world on social media were ingredients, and each of them brought with them lived experience and unique ways of speaking and just lots of personality and so it really was this kind of open-ended, clumsy but really beautiful collaborative process where we made the film without a script and each of them was lending a little bit of themselves and the idea was that we could sort of root this story, which is very much, kind of a fable, but we could root it in something that felt very almost documentary and very specific and very lived in. And so I have to give all of the credit to all those individuals you see here in the trailer who took big leaps to be in a movie for the first time and maybe thought they were being scammed when I first reached out. Um, but took a leap and they're all glad they did at this point because we had just a remarkable and special time making this together. And then obviously, the acclaim is a cherry on top.
Here you're directing a cast. All of them have never been in a movie. Is that true? All
Correct.
of them? Okay. And you found them from around the world. I want to go over some of them with you and putting a mix here and talking about the all important. Every time I talk to a director, they say 90% of the movie, if they've got it, is the cast. And once
Mhm.
they have that, they can make this thing happen. So
Mhm.
key. So you have this guy, Mike Young. He's a soulful singer from New York City that you found on America's Got Talent season 12.
Yeah, I actually found Mike in that Mike is the singer whose video I happened to stumble upon that night that I read the short story. So I saw him and I was like, I gotta have this guy and he blew me away with this soulful raw performance singing in the subway station actually. It's before I knew he was ever on America's Got Talent. I did some research and then found that out. But Mike was kind of the cornerstone of the cast, and we built around him, and he plays the bartender and is sort of the emotional anchor of the film.
Yeah, he's key, when you see the whole film here too. Chris Smither is a folk blues legend known for masterful finger picking and poetic songwriting.
Yeah, Chris just told me he spent his whole life chasing Grammys, and he acted in one short film, and now he's up for an Oscar. Um, so so that was funny. But Chris wasn't originally cast. He was a replacement at the last second because when you make a movie like this and you lean into the unknown and you intentionally leave things open-ended, work with first-time actors, things are going to fall through. Things are going to some of those risks are not going to pay off. And one of those instances was when one of the leads decided 2 days before the shoot that he had gotten cold feet about flying because he hadn't flown since Vietnam. And so we had to scramble and replace him. And amazingly, I don't know, the movie gods were very much on our side because amazingly we got a hold of Chris, who was an incredible alternative. And I told Chris on a call, I said, you don't have to be nervous. You don't have to, you're just gonna play. And he cut me off and he said, I'm not nervous. This sounds so fun. And he's an entertainer and a storyteller and just came with the best energy um, and really enjoyed himself too.
I love that. And Will Harrington's a pianist, street performer, piano technician
Yeah.
through Provincetown's Commercial Street from a musical family.
hmm Yeah, Will is incredible. Will actually ignored my messages for about a year. And then similarly, the week of the shoot finally surfaced. I'd written him off. I thought we were never going to get a hold of him, and finally, I some random connection to my producer Jack led to us getting a hold of him. I got on the phone. I was like, "Man, I've been sending you messages for 12 months," and he was like, "What? I don't check those." And the funny thing is that's kind of the type of person we wanted. We didn't want people with agents and managers or savvy social media accounts. We wanted people who might rather not be found or
Yeah.
might, certainly have never wanted to be in a movie, and that's what we got with Will.
On the opposite side of that is Judah Kelly, who's an Australian singer who actually won The Voice, the Australia's version of The Voice. So he's high profile in a sense completely.
Yeah, yeah, Judah's incredible as well. Um, the logistics of getting him here from Australia were complicated on a short film budget, but we managed, and he flew in and pretty much went straight to set off of a flight, sleepless, and I layered him in winter clothing, and it was a 100-degree weekend in LA while we were filming, and fire was burning, and he was thinking, "What did I get myself into?" But yeah.
And Matthew Corcoran, a different kind of singer. He's an operatic tenor who's
hmm
sung with many different companies and opera companies and things. And you felt the need to have the opera angle here too, I think, too.
Yeah, I think it was about creating a little bit of levity, and undercutting the sort of reverence of the actual ending of the film, um, with a little bit of humor. I think it's nice to be sent on your way as an audience with one more laugh, especially today.
And a very unique story of Hutch, as he goes by that name, a U.S. Army veteran, storyteller, and survivor whose journey from the battlefields of Iraq and Afghanistan to your set, the singers, is really an extraordinary one. After he enlisted in the military after 9/11, quite a story of that
Yeah.
cast member.
Yeah, yeah. I found Hutch on a long-running YouTube channel called Soft White Underbelly, which is interviews with different people who are sort of on the fringes of society. And he went on there and told his story of his PTSD, from his experiences in Afghanistan, and it's the same thing. It was just immediately clear that was the sort of rawness that I was looking for in these people, and he came and was generous to lend some of that sort of trauma to the movie in a way that feels really truthful.
And then when people see the movie, they'll probably recognize this if they're ever on TikTok or Instagram or anywhere on the internet. Tio Rigo and Mr. George. They are a dance act, Salvadoran, that appear in a lot of these kind of venues and are kind of fun.
Yeah, those guys are the life of the party everywhere they go,
Yeah.
and they're tire technicians in Los Angeles, but they've caught on to this thing where they make videos of themselves dancing. They're incredible dancers, really kind of like too cool, and and we thought that would be a fun element to incorporate into the film.
So I love your stories of amassing this cast, the casting process. Did you also have a casting director helping you here in
Yeah,
finding
we
them? Or
did. We did. Natalie Lynn, who I worked with on Dee Dee, feature that I shot, cast the singers. It was a really collaborative, workflow, which took place mostly on the apps, just swiping endlessly and sort of training the algorithm to give us these sorts of unexpected voices and personalities, one of one personalities. And after a couple months of doing that, it was pretty dialed in, and we were being fed a lot of really interesting folks that we would reach out to.
it's so cool in this bar. It's kind of like Cheers on steroids. It's it's a completely different community that you've created here in this
Mm,
film. And what I love about the challenge of short films, and you've certainly done them before too, is it's a bigger challenge in a way than a full-length feature film. You know, you have to find a way to tell these stories to bring us into this world in a very short amount of time. So
mm.
what was that challenge like for you in distilling this story for the screen?
I think a lot of shorts are meant to be proofs of concept for longer features. And with this one, I always knew that it was going to be. I always knew it was, a true short film. It's based on a 15-page text, and it feels like a poem to me. It feels like I felt like we said what we wanted to say in 17 minutes. So something about the way that the original concept translated felt kind of bite-sized in a way that lended itself really beautifully to a short film. But I absolutely love short films, and you're right, they don't take any less energy than feature films a lot of the time. I mean, this thing took 3.5 years from concept to completion. So, um, but I really enjoy the ability to obsess over each pixel even more than you would with a feature, because you have this concentrated sort of diamond that you're chiseling, and you can really hone a vision when it's 17 minutes versus 90 or more. Um, yeah, I probably will always make shorts here and there, not exclusively, but I do. I love this. I love this format.
So many people who have done short films that have been in the Oscars thing where I talk to them, they always tell me, now I'm going to do a feature length version of this
Hmm.
very short. They use it as
Hmm.
like an audition piece, you know.
Right. And that's a very viable path forward. But for this one, I think for this one, if there's any concept I was proving, it was more so specific voice, which is like my version of synthesizing my narrative and documentary background, and trying to establish a really unique tone. There's just so much great stuff out there throughout the history of film. There's so much bad stuff out there also, that anything worth doing, in my opinion, has to be kind of unprecedented on some level, and ambitious, and so that's why we leaned into so many um, sort of risks with this process. We wanted to do something memorable and original.
Can you talk, you're a cinematographer. Can you talk about the visual look of the movie, which is dark but just so bright? You know,
Mm.
I mean, I thought the visuals here just fit this story and what you're trying to do
Thank
so
you.
well.
Thank you. Yeah, we referenced mostly paintings, like Renaissance era
Yeah.
paintings. We wanted to create that sort of Caravaggio glow, in a contrasty environment off of a skin tone. Um, and compositionally, the idea was to start really claustrophobic, almost exclusively in close-ups and singles to isolate each of these strangers, a group of lonely men, and then for the composition to slowly start to expand as the story gives way to this sing-off and a sense of brotherhood and community starts to emerge. But I'm really proud of the way that the film looks, and it was shot on film, and that was
Yeah,
something
that's what
too
I
that
was going to
was
ask you. So you shot this on
yeah.
film, which doesn't happen a
Hmm.
whole lot these days. Um,
Yeah.
that was important.
Yeah, absolutely. I always envisioned this being shot on film. Uh, the obvious reason being, we wanted it to be timeless and textured and uh and to have that sort of magic. But I think I was also challenging myself to see if I could have the spontaneity and the sort of wildness of documentary in the performances and the casting, but for that sort of chaos to be framed in a way that's almost classical, you know. It's really thoughtfully shot and locked down and considered, and it's shot on 35, but hopefully within that, uh, it feels like there's some sort of spontaneous real life, flowing.
Yeah. Um, Again, these are all first time film actors, so film acting is very, something learned. And
Hmm.
here we're looking at an entire cast that's going through the same thing in levels of their experience. So how did you get the emotional stuff? Because this movie is gets really gets the emotion here, and that's so hard to do. But particularly with a cast of newcomer actors here, how did you pull that off as a director? What did you do with them?
I think a huge part of it is just trust building. And that's a lot of what we do in documentary with subjects and filmmakers. It's so crucial to get to know people and further and to establish a mutual trust where they trust that I'm not a scammer or that I'm not going to make them look silly or take advantage of them in some way. And I have to trust that they're going to be able to do what you just said, which is be vulnerable and give me something that's true. I didn't always know what I was looking from each person. I just felt that everyone who we invited to come to the bar had a lot of depth and a lot of stuff to be mined, whether that was comedy or trauma, like in Hutch's case. Um, and yeah, there was this really kind of meta thing that happened throughout this experiment, which is that we started a group of strangers who were all a little uncomfortable, and we were all vulnerable, and we did this crazy creative process together, and over the course of 4 days, really did form a little family,
Yeah.
um, and it was so special.
Well, you had that balance between camaraderie and loneliness here
Mm.
that you're constantly playing with. Anytime in a
Hmm.
bar where, a group of strangers somehow become community,
Yeah,
it's tricky right there. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
to make that work. You really achieved that. I have to
Thank
talk
you.
about the way this movie builds to the musical moments and to its ending. And I know we're getting people to watch it, but I want to talk about the ending because it's so
Sure.
powerful and it sends such a message about masculinity and self-image and
Hmm.
togetherness and brotherhood and people coming together. And it feels right for these times that are so divided that the message that you ultimately walk away with from this movie is one big giant hug, literally and figuratively.
Hmm. Yeah, the movie starts with a fight and ends with a hug. And
Yeah.
that kind of sums it up as well as I could. But we wanted to tell a story about, yeah, masculinity, but I think just universally a story about how much we isolate ourselves. In general, men, women, everyone, and just the power of acknowledging your neighbor and maybe realizing that you have something in common, or that the person you're sitting next to at the bar might have an incredible talent. Um, and uh, and the idea that we can like express so much through our art and how healthy, that can be as an outlet, whether it's song or filmmaking or writing poetry, whatever. And that's something that I really believe in and hope audiences take away from watching the film.
How did you choose the music? You know, and there's always problems with music clearance and everything else.
Hmm.
So that had to be
Yeah.
a big factor in
Yeah. Yeah, it
figuring
was
out the film.
complicated. We essentially pre-cleared certain songs before the artist got to set. So we had discussions about what might be a good fit, and we had to also look at how the mosaic of how those songs fit together and make sure that that story was calibrated. Um, but yeah, we sort of preemptively cleared like a short list for each of the guys. I didn't want to commit to a specific song until I could hear it sung by them in the space. Um, so the day before the shoot, they got there and we did sort of like a fast hybrid wardrobe fitting slash like rehearsal. Got the camera in front of them so they could kind of start to get comfortable with that. And yeah, we sang the songs and there was very little debate. I think everybody could feel it once we found the right song. And uh, um, the only one that we didn't even consider others for was Mike Young, Unchained Melody by the Righteous Brothers, which is the
Right.
song that I heard that very first night, him singing in the subway station. So that just it felt meant to be.
Netflix
Absolutely.
came into your life and bought this movie. How did that happen?
Yeah, well, we had a really great festival life.
You were at
Premiered,
the South by Southwest, you were at
yeah.
Tribeca, you played all these
Mhm.
festivals.
Yeah, we did about 50 film festivals, and the film won awards along the way, and I think was starting to gain a little bit of traction. And I had some relationships at Netflix from the period end of Sentence Days, who are still there. And that film was also distributed by Netflix, and
Yeah.
invited them to some screenings, and I think it was a slow burn conversation over the course of maybe 2 months or 3 months, and I also have some friends who created Train Dreams this year. Clinton and Greg, who have been mentors to me, and they're with Netflix as well, and so they were helpful too. So it's just a lot of people who helped to kind of get it seen there, and then the film resonated with the team like it has with audiences, and they've just been incredible partners so far.
Yeah, I know. I wrote the acquisition story for Deadline when this was picked up
Yeah,
before it got its nomination. They had great faith that
yeah,
this was going to go
yeah. That
for.
meant a lot.
They did indeed. Well, before we wrap up, we always like to ask a question. You know, if there's one thing about this film that stands out for you that'll make somebody who hasn't had the chance to see it excited to see it, other than everything we've already talked about, what would it be? Well, why do you want people to see this? What do you
Hmm.
hope they take?
Typically, I think I would go to the casting element, but that's pretty well documented here so far. But I think another thing that's worth highlighting is just how handmade the film is. And that was very intentional today, specifically, sort of in the age of algorithms and automation, to make something where we took a lot of risks and involved a lot of incredible human artists, and I think you can feel that sort of handmade quality and love in the film, and it's a good example of the type of thing I want to continue to do in my career. And it's just been affirming and heartening the way that the audiences have embraced the film, and Netflix, and I'm really encouraged in a moment where a lot of people are feeling skeptical about the future of film.
Yeah, well, I hope not, because this is definitely one to see. You can see it now on Netflix, or track it down in theaters on the special Oscar Shorts shows. and many other ways too. This has been great. Thank you so much for joining us on Half Hour with Sam Davis. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete.